Good morning. Welcome to the Canadians After Party. Can Talks. On behalf of St. Mary's Research Center, it's my pleasure to welcome you here today on this second edition of Can Talks. Can Talks is St. Mary's commitment to patient-centered care and multidisciplinary collaboration. On est tous dans le même combat, on veut tous se débarrasser du cancer, en même temps getting our patients safely through their treatments and with the least amount of adverse events is the next challenge that we need to be tackling. And that is the point of today's conference. J'aimerais remercier Dr. Cass Esfahani, qui a choisi de tenir cette conférence en même temps que la Formule 1 à Montréal. C'est génial. Thank you, Cash. Cash is the scientific director of today's program. He's put together an amazing program of national and international experts. J'en profite pour souligner une innovation cette année dans la programmation, un programme scientifique dédié spécifiquement aux infirmières pour souligner leur apport et leur contribution dans la gestion des effets secondaires et des toxicités des traitements en oncologie. Obviously, an event like this cannot take place without our sponsors and our partners. I want to thank them, and I encourage each and every one of you to go to the room next door during the breaks. If you want your free tote bag, your coffee mug, your Can Talks t-shirt with the cool logo, go see our reps and take advantage of what they have to offer in terms of information. J'aimerais aussi prendre le temps de remercier la Fondation de l'Hôpital St. Mary's, notre partenaire essentiel dans l'organisation de cette conférence. Un grand merci à tous nos présentateurs, aux organisateurs, à l'équipe administrative du Centre de recherche, et je vous souhaite une bonne journée. With that, I'd like to invite Dr. Cash Esfahani, the co-director of the Clinical Trials Program at St. Mary's Research Center and the scientific director of today's conference. Cash?
Hello, good morning. Welcome again to this exciting event. It's our second year, hopefully the second of many. So I'm going to start with just a bit of logistics of what we're going to do this year. So first, for those of you who are Francophone or vice versa, we have this year AI translation that you can use. Just scan the QR code and you're all set. Again, like Ari said, I would like to really thank our sponsors. Without them, this would not be possible. And somebody could potentially fact check me on this, but I think we are probably now the most sponsored conference in Canada. So thank you to all of our sponsors who made this possible. So I'm just going to list them quick. So you're going to see we have this year, I think, a record-breaking 28 sponsors across all pharmas, and also community partners who are involved in the daily care of our patients, whether it's for health purposes, like the PowerFlex Fitness Center or our pharmacy, community pharmacies with whom we work daily. Thank you again for sponsoring today's conference and helping us in this mission. So as Dr. Meguerditchian said, please do visit our sponsors booth. It's on the left at the back. That's where you're going to find the free merchandise, which is very popular, so you better take some before it finishes. So we have the t-shirts, the mugs, the tote bags. They're very cute. I vouch on that. If you need a coffee, we have a barista on that corner. He's there all day, so take advantage and enjoy. And so yeah, I did say about the gifts. So here's the schedule of the event. So the morning, we're all together, and we have speakers across different specialties. We have some international speakers who are going to join us that we're excited to have. And in the afternoon, we're going to break. So we have, what's new this year is we have a dedicated session for the nurses. That's in the ballroom, which is on the other side over there. And then for the rest of us, we can stay here for some other talks. Stick around, because at the session at 3:45 here, which is the Ask the Experts, we're going to have a chance to ask questions. I mean, every time a speaker does their presentation, we're going to have a chance to ask a few questions, but we might not have time to ask all the questions. But at 3:45, we have a dedicated session to ask questions to a panel of experts. And most importantly, we have a quiz with amazing prizes, so you don't want to miss that, okay? So this is the scientific committee that put this conference together. There's me, and more importantly, there's 3 of my mentors here, physicians who are remarkable, with whom I trained since I was a student, and who've helped me to be the physician I've become. So I'm very proud and glad to have them on board and help with this conference. So thank you, Dr. Hudson, thank you, Dr. Miller, and thank you, Dr. Meguerditchian. So for our moderators, I don't think they need introduction, but for the morning session, we have Dr. Bertrand Routy, who's our star of the clinical research on microbiome. He's literally a model for clinician scientists, very bright mind, and does amazing research. So he'll be moderating the morning sessions, and then we have Dr. Mary Hudson, who's also one of, as I said, one of my mentors, and longtime colleagues, who's a rheumatologist at the Jewish, who does amazing work in the field of autoimmune diseases and also has overlapped with cancer care, given the similarities. And then we have my mentor, Dr. Wilson Miller, who also needs no introduction as a leader of our phase 1 clinical research unit and a leader in the field of novel cancer therapies, who will moderate the question period later on. And so let's get started. And I would like to start this conference with something that matters more than any lecture, figure, or slides that we're going to show today, and that's the patient perspective. Because at the end of the day, patients are at the center of what we do, and they have a way to humble us, to inspire us, to challenge us, and more importantly, to teach us medicine in a way that no textbook can ever do. And that brings me to Bob Cote. So now Bob is much more than a patient to me. He's actually a lifelong friend, and our story goes back many, many years now. I first met Bob when I was a fellow or resident in Dr. Miller's clinic, and one day I got a call from Dr. Shami. So now for some context, for those of you who don't know Dr. Shami, she's essentially a force of nature disguised as an oncologist. And she's trained me and countless cohorts of medical students and residents in the past, and she has taught us like the art of medicine, physical exam, history taking, clinical judgment, and also more importantly, she has conditioned me to fear every time I see her name show up on my caller ID. So naturally, when I see her name pop up on my phone, I answered immediately, and she said, with no introduction, no hello, Cash, you need to see Bob Cote. I'm like, okay, straight to the point. She told me Bob was an old-time friend of hers, and he was recently diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer, and that he needed a second opinion and to start treatment very urgently. And back then, I remember feeling 2 things at the same time. First, I was really honored that she was trusting me with Bob's care. And second, I was absolutely convinced that if I messed this up, I would never have a job at the Jewish again, and I might even leave the country and go to some place that doesn't have an extradition policy. So then I just met with Bob, and that was the time we were just starting to use double immunotherapy for kidney cancer. It wasn't really yet the standard of care. We went over the pros and cons, and ultimately he decided to make the jump, and we started him on treatment. And things were going well initially until they were not. So one day, Bob showed in my clinic, and he really didn't look well. I mean, you're gonna see Bob is a fit guy, he's healthy, but that day it was really off. And not only he did not look well, but he had these tumor nodules growing everywhere on his body, like under the skin, on his legs. And it really got me concerned to the point where I needed to admit him directly to the hospital on that day. And I remember thinking, this is bad, like really, really bad. But that's when medicine has a way of humbling you when you think you know the answer and you know what's going on. Because after we did the scans and the biopsies and the investigations, we realized that something incredible was happening. So Bob's cancer was not progressing. Those tumor nodules that I thought were tumor were actually an immune inflammatory response, one unlike anything I had seen before then. So essentially what had happened is that his immune system had gone completely nuclear and unleashed one of the strongest immune reactions I had ever witnessed. And that's what had created all these illness, nodules that we had felt. And I'm thinking, his immune system had decided not only we are eliminating tumor, but we're attacking anything that seems to be sympathetic to the tumor. So that's why his body was like all off. And somehow, paradoxically, that terrifying moment became the turning point in his history, and that's what he's going to tell you about. So today, before we diving into the science and the slides and the statistics, I think it's important that we hear his story, somebody who has actually lived through all of it, and it's going to be quite a story. So Bob, I'm really happy you're here. I'm incredibly happy you're well, and I can't wait for the people to hear your story. So please join me in welcoming Bob Cote.
Good morning. Better not touch it. Thanks, Cash. Thank you for inviting me today, and thank you in so many other ways. It really is a privilege to be here with all you medical people, like for a layman like me, calling it medical people, but I would like to thank Cash specifically and Dr. Miller, who is also part of my ride many, many years ago, 2018 to be exact. I was told that I'm speaking till 12:30, and then there's a Q&A. Is that right? Just making sure that we're all on the same page on that one. What Dr. Esfahani asked me to do is basically talk about my journey. So I'm going to repeat a little bit of what was said already, but I just want to give you, I guess, from really the patient's perspective, which is my perspective. So on June 16th, a relatively healthy guy, loved sports, played sports, never really thought anything was wrong. And then I'm going to be very blunt, but I started urinating blood. And I said, oh, that must be an infection. Here you go. One of those infections you hear about, you don't think much about. And I was at a buddy's house, and the next morning, there was really nothing, no blood, no nothing. I figured, okay, it was just that night. Maybe I had a few too many glasses of wine. I'm not sure. But then the next day, I started urinating blood clots and blood. So it was a combination of the blood clots that got me a little nervous to the point where I couldn't pee at all. So my really good friend's neighbor's wife, my neighbor who's a really good friend, his wife, drove me to the hospital where I went to the emergency room, and the catheter was installed, which was a lot of fun. That was the first step in my process. And then I basically, within the next day or so, it went from my thought process being an infection to cancer, which basically was the size of a hockey puck, since we're all so into hockey right now, but it was diagnosed as a hockey puck and broke through the kidney, which therefore created blood flows throughout my whole body, and therefore the blood was basically bursting through the kidney walls, and there you go. So within 6 days, I was very fortunate enough to have an operation, or as you guys call it, a nephrectomy, and the operation went very well. I had an incredible surgeon, and he really did a great job and is just an amazing human being as well. And I basically was in the recovery stage, so I thought, hey, this is okay, right? The operation went well, kidney's out, and basically I'm good to go. Spread to, it's recovery, and I'll start playing golf and hockey very shortly. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because the tumor had spread, and it had spread to the lungs, the abdomen, the private parts, and that's when it got pretty scary. And that's when I met with my 21-year-old son at the time, Cash, and Dr. Miller, and that's when I found out that they both said that it's stage 4. And then I pushed them. They wouldn't say it, but I pushed them, and I said, how long do I have? And their answer was 8 to 10 months. So that was a bit of a shocker and a bit of a dry throat for me anyway. So I did have a decision to make: the traditional route, or the route that Cash described so eloquently, which I probably can't describe, but it definitely had to do with melanoma cancer that is now on the experimental side, on the kidney cancer, and I decided to go that route. I said, you know what? go big or go home, and that was a decision I made because it was time to go from the surgeon to the oncologist. And as Cash said, Dr. Shami had a lot of influence the most influence in introducing me to Cash and Dr. Miller, which pretty much saved my life. So what happened was it's amazing. It's 8 years ago, and you still get choked up about it. What's amazing, or what happened was the dual immunotherapy killed my pituitary gland. So by killing your pituitary gland, it kills your thyroid and your adrenal gland. So that's really what happened. So one of the most emotional things was I was at my house, my old house, because I've been separated for probably 2 decades, but very close to the family, and I was recovering from the operation, but I didn't realize that my pituitary gland was blown apart. I didn't realize, who knew? And I had lost probably 40 pounds, 35, 40 pounds, and it was one of those things where I couldn't eat a little slice of orange. And it was one night at the house when I was trying to eat and I couldn't. I went to bed, and my daughter, who was 23 at the time, started yelling at me and crying because she said, "You got to go to the hospital." I said, "No, I'm too tired." I went. They took me in right away. I had hypothermia, so they put a bear blanket on me. Then my fever went to 105. Then it went back down to hypothermia. Then I had a high fever again. And basically, it was one of those things where, as you all know, in this room, you can't control your body temperature. So it was a fluctuation because I had no pituitary gland. So that was quite interesting in itself. And then as time went on, and as Cash put me through PET scan and CT scan to see how it was going, there wasn't a lot of encouragement. And then on December 28th, I went to see Bohemian Rhapsody. I remember that very distinctively because there's certain things in life you don't forget, whether it's a movie, a time and a place, or an event. Coming home from Bohemian Rhapsody on December 28th at 9:30 at night, Cash reached out and said that, don't ask me why at 9:30 at night, don't ask me how he found out, but he did. But he reached out at 9:30 at night, very distinctively remember that is, and he said, "Bob, I have amazing news. The tumors have stopped growing," which was the first step, I guess, in this process that was the first piece of, I can't say the only piece of good news, but it was really the piece of good news we were all waiting for. And it's something you really don't forget. So basically, today, unless I look at my scar, which is about 35 or 36 and a half inches, just to be precise, when I come out of the shower, it really is a distant memory. I take Cortev, I take Synthroid pills to balance out those 2 things that I lost, which is really not that big a deal. A pill in the morning, pill in the afternoon. Bob's your uncle. I drink lots of water with 1 kidney. One thing Cash said was, drink lots of water, Bob, lots of water. If you go for a run or you play hockey, just get that water in you, because with the 1 kidney, you want to keep it very fluid, so to speak. So a lot of sleep as much as I can, a little less red wine. I just wish Cash could cure my slice on the golf course. But the secret sauce, in my opinion, is really, it was faith at all times, great friends, very fortunate, great family, great medicine, and great doctors. But I did want to end this by just saying thank you to everybody in this room for what you do. It really does matter, and you can take that from me personally. It really does matter, because without Cash, Dr. Miller's attention to detail, I guess I wouldn't be here, that's for sure. I never would have seen my daughter get married, and I never would have had the joy of holding my newborn grandson, which is probably one of the coolest things that I can ever imagine. So at the end of the day, thank you, and I wish you continued success, and I hope there's a lot more stories like mine out there. So thank you.
Wow, Bob, that was such an interesting perspective. Thank you. wow, I'm also getting a bit emotional now because he's like, Bob is one of my earliest memories of oncology when I had just started in the field as a resident, and everything is all exciting and you wish the best for all your patients, and it doesn't always happen, but it's so good to have somebody like Bob who's done so well and essentially is cured of cancer. Now he's doing so well, he doesn't even come to see me anymore. He's like, it's been 3 years, I haven't seen him. I just hear about his success. So yeah, it's just good to see that people make it and people go on with their life, accomplish great things, and just come back to give back to the community, and that's great.